Hello and welcome to the Last Word on Spurs. We are your multi-award winning Tottenham Hotspur podcast, and we are back on Boxing Day to try and give you some guidance, some reflection, a dissertation on Spurs being beaten by Nottingham Forest in the Premier League. If it was for the very first time, you can find us on iTunes, we're on Spotify, we're across all major audio platforms, we're of course on X, we're on Instagram, we're on Blue Sky too. I want to say at the very, very top of this show, really important that I stress this. I hope everybody has had, before our football club, taking our football club out of the equation, a very, very Merry Christmas with time spent with friends, with family. If you haven't been celebrating it with family or friends, again, our thoughts are with you. And I will just say this as well, for those that aren't celebrating Christmas out there, I hope you have had a decent festive break, barring the football. And I'll also say this at the very, very top of the show, if you don't mind me saying this, we want to make these shows as watchable and as listenable as possible. And I really do appreciate right now that might not be easy given the form that our current football club is showing. We will always try, in my perspective, to try and reflect a balance of where things are at the football club, whilst that might be tricky to do as we ride the stormy waters. Like I say, a massive thank you to this wonderful panel. Regulars that join us here on this Boxing Day special that are going to try and give you some optimism, some hope as to where we are with Tottenham. They'll try. I can't promise they will. We're joined by the brilliant Marlon over at the Spurs Kings. Miles, thank you so much. We're joined by Chatty Patty, who I think, to be fair, Pat's going to have a lot of chat during this one. We're also joined by Mitch Fretton on this Last Word on Spurs. And I will just at the very, very top of this show, look, it is Boxing Day, so we may not be a normal kind of hour and a half show. We'll try and give you all that we've got, and hopefully that's enough. But we appreciate it's really, really tough times at the moment. Look, we're going to get into all of that game and what is to come with these wonderful guests. Let's get in before we can do to the match, facts, stats, and everything broken down for you in this one. Nottingham Forest 1, Tottenham Hotspur 0. It finished at the City Ground. 10 shots for Forest to Spurs' 13. 3 shots on target to Forest for Spurs' 4. 17 touches in the Forest box to Tottenham's 31. 3 yellows to Spurs' 2. A red card Spurs' way in late in that game to Jed Spence, who Spurs will now lose to a suspension. Offsides, Forest edged it on 4-1. Spurs edging the corners on 7-2. Forest doing what a lot of teams have done this season and allowing Spurs to have the ball for the majority of the game. Spurs did 70.4 to 29.6 in the favour of Tottenham Hotspur. And that XG stat, 1.21 for Forest to 1.28 for Tottenham Hotspur. Right, before we come round to the panellists, just to kind of give everybody an overview of where we are. Many might be sick of me saying it, so apologies if those are kind of listening or shouting at their TV or respective podcast player when I say this. We are acutely aware that Tottenham Hotspur currently are without 10 first-team players. You'd argue Fulham being automatic, and you can add to that now Jed Spence, who will serve a later suspension, and Radu Dragic, who picked up an injury later in that game, where we're going to get hopefully an update from Ange Postecoglou, if not today, but in the coming days ahead of Wolves. Spurs currently without in terms of their squad, for those that, again, are not reminded of that one. Guillermo Vicario, Ben Davis, Mickey van der Ven, Christian Romero, Wilson Odobert, Mikey Moore, Richarlison. So look, Spurs are depleted through injury. I know many will not be really interested in that fact, and they'll be looking simply at the eye test and what they see on the game. Mitch, I'm going to open up with you if you don't mind. Look, Forest's first win against Spurs since 1997. They move now 11 points clear of Tottenham Hotspur in the Premier League. 1 win in the last 6 for Tottenham. It's their 9th Premier League defeat of the season. And just to put that into perspective, Tottenham did not lose 9 games until April of last season. And it is 3 wins in the last 11 games. Mitch, there's a lot to talk about on this show. We appreciate it. But give me an overview of what you made of the game first for you, and lovely to have you back on it.
Well, first of all, I just want to say that I hope everybody had a very happy Christmas. To those that didn't celebrate, had a brilliant festive period. And thank you so much for having me on again, Ricky, even in the toughest of times, alongside a brilliant panel. I think that's about all the energy I've got. Seriously, it's today was such a difficult watch. It was a classic performance where I think we watched it and we would probably all agree that if we played that game another 3 times, we probably still wouldn't have scored, which is quite irregular for us. Top scorers in the Premier League, that's not really been necessarily the issue of our game under Ange since he's been here in the 18 months that he's been here. But if you look at the way Nottingham Forest have played over the course of the season, it was a classic Nottingham Forest performance. Their defence is outstanding. Nuno is a specialist in that. We knew that when we hired him. And he proved it once again. The defenders that they have at the back in Milenkovic and Murillo are superb. And they completely bullied our front line today. I don't actually think the first half performance from Tottenham was that bad. But the second half, when you're 1-0 down and you come out in the second half, the intensity didn't step up. We looked out of ideas. The substitutes off the bench were uninspiring. Matters had a little bit of an impact, but not enough when you're chasing a game. So it was just, it was just the same old story. Another game that we lose by the odd goal, which has been the story of Tottenham so far this season. When we win them big. When we lose them, it's quite narrow. Forest are an excellent team. They're third in the Premier League table for a reason. So I do still want to give Nottingham Forest credit, because undoubtedly we will probably tear into Tottenham and everything that's wrong at the club at the moment. But, we have to also give credit to Nottingham Forest, because they played their game plan to perfection. They took their chance fantastically when it came to them. And you'd probably sit there and think, if we had equalised, they would have just gone up the gears again, like Liverpool did against us at the weekend, and probably could have found another goal or two if they needed to. So, yeah, it was really, really disappointing, mate. And obviously, every single football fan wants their team to win and ultimately put in a good performance on Boxing Day, day after Christmas. Everybody's, full of food. Everybody's been enjoying time with family and everything in between. But I just, unfortunately, don't feel like that was ever going to happen with Tottenham. And it was just another one of those performances that made us even more miserable than we already are. And people are questioning things and everything in between. So, yeah, just disappointed is the word for me, Ricky, to be honest.
Mitch, thank you so much to open up. Look, there's a lot to get through on this show. There's no doubt about it. Even I conversely said we are going to be quicker than usual. Pat, I am going to steer my attention to you for this one. Look, that result does mean now that it's Tottenham's worst first half of a Premier League season since the 08-09 season. And they also now mathematically can't equal their record points tally for a Premier League season in the 2016-2017 season. Spurs have only won 9 of their last 25 Premier League games, won 9, drawn 2, lost 13. It's another defeat. It's another injury, Manu Dragoshin, and it is another suspension for Tottenham with Jed Spence sent off late into that game. Pat, I know there's so much to get into with regards to this one, but in terms of the overall performance, Pat, what did you make of it for you?
Much of a muchness, really. The same old stuff, like Mitch said. And yeah, I mean, going into the game, I can't lie to you, I wasn't really optimistic when you just look at it. Just like even taking out all the emotion out of it and just looking at it from just a stats point of view and just looking at the teams, facing them off against each other. We had gone into the game both playing 17 times. They had won 9 games. We have won 7. We've drawn 2 games, they've drawn 4. But if you look at the stats on the loss column, that's telling. They've only lost 4 games and we had lost 8. So they are by far the better team, defensively more stable. Yes, they don't score as many goals, but they're a balanced team. And the problem with this Tottenham team is that there's no balance. We're either amazing going forward and, we win a game massively, or we lose a game by the odd goal like today and we just never look like scoring or getting into that game. And Mitch said the same thing. I mean, obviously, I wasn't on the Liverpool stream and I had people, I thought it was so weird. Like, people were commending the fact that we scored 3 goals against Liverpool. No one's done that to them this season, but they scored 6 against us. They were 5-1 up after, with 30 minutes left. And as soon as the game got close, then they turned up the gears and scored another goal. And I feel that's what would have happened if we would have got back into this game. They would have just stepped up a bit. And this is the difference between good teams. Like Nottingham Forest now look like a good team. They know how to manage a game. They know how to see a game out and control the game. We don't do that. We're just rock and roll, helter-skelter, and there's no end product to what we're doing. I don't know. I mean, it's Christmas, it's Boxing Day. I said to myself before the game, I'm not going to go crazy today. I'm not going to get annoyed if we lose. more than likely we were going to lose. So, you know, we just got to enjoy this festive period and enjoy time off and with the family. I think this team's done, like, realistically. What are our achievements, or what are our aims and goals for this season? Because domestically in the league, I can't see us getting top 4. Can't see us getting top 6. So what are we going to be now? A cup team, and we try and win the Europa. But if we're playing like this, we're not going to beat good teams, irrespective if it's in a league or knockout format. So I don't know. I don't know where we go from here. It's just a bit of a shambles, really. Yeah, but other than that, Merry Christmas, everyone.
Thank you so much. I will just make that point. These are really tricky shows to do when we are having to come straight after a game that was of that nature, and you're having to come in and pull your thoughts out to try and give some kind of summarization as to where we are right now. It is really, really tough. It is indeed. Miles, thank you so much. I want to say that this is the last show on the road of a consecutive one, but it isn't for you because you're back for Wolves. I mean, God, talk about overseeing a period. My God, what are we doing to you? I'm so sorry. Look, I think bad enough we have the issues that we have, right? And we're going to come on to those issues in a bit more detail. But when your top players, I put that in brackets, top players like Bentancur, Sonny, and dare I say Kulusevski, and to be fair to Kulu, he's been brilliant for Spurs most of the season. When your leaders, when your top players are not showing up, there's not much chance of winning a game of football when quite clearly, Miles, there's low confidence in the camp. We have got a multitude of injuries. There's no getting away from that. In terms of an analysis on that game alone, Miles, before we get into everything that we need to here, what did you make of the actual performance, the display against Forest for you?
Look, if we look at most of our performances this season, we've seen many of these. It's not nothing new. So I looked at it and I was like, you know what? I could see this performance come in. You could see within the first 5 minutes that it was going to be a typical Spurs performance. And what I mean by that is, like, we cannot sit there and blame the injuries today because we've only let in 1 goal. So going forward was always going to be key. It was just poor. I think as soon as you took Maddison out, and I think this is the big thing everyone needs to realize with Maddison, is even though sometimes we think he's doing nothing, he has a very big impact on a lot of stuff that happens going forward, even when we think he's not. And I just thought this was the game for him to play. And I couldn't understand why he wasn't in the lineup. I would not have played Brendan Johnson. I would have played Kudo off the right straight away. So first of all, my back was up against the wall with it, and I was like, I know exactly what type of performance we're going to see. So when they go out and actually produce exactly what I'm expecting, I'm kind of like, where do we go from here? Like, if I'm being honest, I said this on the last show, my emotions are now being taken out of these games because I'm just kind of like, here we go again. And I can't see how, if we looked at it on paper, we should be beating that Forest side. We should be. On paper, we should be. But when you go and concede 6 in a game before, it does have an impact on morale. And this is the bit that people didn't understand. And when they were going, oh, but we scored 3. Well, today they conceded less, but going forward, they just couldn't do anything. And that was the big thing. It was just literally nothing going forward. It was toothless. It was probably, for me, and I've been a big advocate, it was Solanke's worst game for us that he's had. Brennan, I think I said it on the last show, I think him and Brendan Johnson just don't work. Whenever them two are on the pitch together, Solanke just never seems to score. So if I'm seeing this, and I'm not, you know, I do look at the data and I do look at the stats, what are the coaches doing? What is Ange doing? So I'm kind of looking at going, let's just wait and see. We've got Wolves at the weekend. It's, where do we go from here? I think Pat's right. You know, when you look at what do we expect from this season, I think I've said to you many times, the league for me, look, if we're going to be serious in the cup, I have to take these performances. But I tell you now, as soon as that cup game goes wrong, that's when I'll be like, with everyone else, I don't want to see no more of this. So at the moment, he's got me on side, but I need to see something better on the pitch. I just need to see something. Too many defeats. The fact we're at the moment that only 2 teams, until they play today, only 2 teams have lost more games than us this season. And we're at Christmas. It's not good. It's not good. No matter how many games we've won, it is not good.
I appreciate what you're saying there, Miles, 100%. Look, this is a live table, right? So things may change over the course of this weekend, as we know. Spurs currently 11th in the Premier League, They've played 18. They've got 23 points so far. We've already told you about the perverse nature of the points collected so far when you compare that to previous seasons. Mitch, you know what? When we look at games like this, quite often the players are glazed over in terms of their performances. I mean, the one common denominator that we are talking about here with players is the fact that, instructions, are they following them? Are they playing for the manager? We appreciate at the moment, like I said, there's been a multitude of injuries. There's no doubt about that. When we talk about there, Marlon suggesting that there's struggles on the field with regards to seeing how Solanke and Brennan Johnson are linking up together. Are you seeing, Mitch, for you on the field there in this one that we've not scored in this game, the necessary patterns of play to show that the players are performing to an instruction that's been sent out by the manager? We'll come on to the manager shortly, but I'm really interested to know from the players' perspective here, are you seeing a pattern to the way we're playing? Is there a cohesive message that you're seeing the players are following here for you?
I do, but the problem with it is it's very risk and reward, and I think we saw that for the Forest goal today. I'm not sure, I can't remember which fullback it was, but their goal came from one of our fullbacks receiving the ball in a number 10 position, getting dispossessed, and then the issue is we've got so many people up the field. Morgan Gibbs-White picks the ball up pretty much on the edge of his own box, and he runs uncontested into yards and yards and acres of space all the way to the edge of our box before playing that ball through for Elanga to finish. So I don't necessarily think that the players aren't doing what Ange is asking them to do, and because of that, there are a lot of problems. And, I know we're going to talk about the manager in a little bit, but it's just, you know that Nottingham Forest are going to set up to counter-attack you. You know that that's how they've won a lot of games this season and how they've picked up a lot of points. They're an excellent counter-attacking side with the wingers they've got, Hudson-Odoi, Elanga, Morgan Gibbs-White as their creator, everything in between. So I think the three main issues on the pitch for Tottenham, which were evident again today and have been for a while, were the two fullbacks and the lack of a number 6. The two fullbacks are very much driven on inverting Jed Spence and Destiny Udogie for the main part today. They're so driven to move into the middle and provide that extra body in attack that when we do lose the ball and when we turn the ball over, they're massively out of position. They're always instructed to overlap the wingers and get into the final third. Our issue is in midfield when we then lose the ball, either because we're playing a risky pass or someone's getting dispossessed, we're then so short at the back. And okay, maybe for the Nottingham Forest goal today, Archie Gray maybe should have stepped out and come towards Morgan Gibbs-White, but you have to give him the benefit of the doubt because he's an 18-year-old midfielder playing at centre-back. So his knowledge of the tactics and how to play as a centre-back isn't going to be perhaps to the level that you'd expect for a Premier League club the size of Tottenham. So I'm not blaming him for that aspect, but it is just attack and hope for the breakthrough. But we've all watched the Premier League our whole lives, and we know that any Premier League team can hurt another Premier League team. I actually think the standard of the teams across the entire league is probably at the highest it's perhaps ever been in terms of all the way across the board. And we could lose to any single team in the Premier League. And we have lost to the worst teams in the league this season already. So for me, it was just another classic example of that in the Forest game. And, there has to come a point where you bite and you go, okay, how do I stop this from happening? And that's what's missing at the moment.
Yeah, I mean, look, Mitch, really appreciate that breakdown there. But Pat, before I come to you, I'm going to bring in some of Ange Postecoglou's thoughts in that game. But I think what's really important in terms of when I share, the stats overall this season for Spurs, after 18 matches, it's quite interesting. I look at the record for the 24-25 season for Tottenham in terms of the Premier League. 18 games played, 7 wins, 2 draws, 9 defeats, 39 goals scored, 26 goals conceded. Now, after 18 matches of last season, we had 11 wins, 3 draws, 4 losses, 37 scored, 24 conceded, 37 points. Now, Tottenham, after 18 matches of this respective season, 7 wins, 2 draws, 9 losses, 39 scored, 26 conceded, 23 points. I mean, the gulf in that difference is quite simply remarkable. You're looking at a swing there of over nearly 14 points, the difference. Look, again, we will make this point. Spurs have been heavily decimated by injuries. And if you go back and look at 18 games in the past 10 seasons of where Spurs are at the moment, we're 23 points. When you look at last season, it was 36, 22, 23, 30 points, 21, 22, 32 points, 20, 21, 33 points, 19, 20, 26 points, 18, 19, 42 points, 17, 18, 31 points, 16, 17, 36 points, 15, 16, 32 points. I mean, it kind of gives you a picture there in terms of, our points accumulation over the last 10 seasons. Where we are right now is massively, massively concerning. And there is huge pressure, no doubt, on Ange Postecoglou's future at the football club. Now, Ange has been speaking to media to give an update on where we are, not only on his future, but on some of the players' injuries to come out of that game. One of them, of course, is Radu Dragusin. Now, Dragusin had to leave the pitch in the latter moments of that game. Ange just said he was a bit sore. He's hurt his ankle and said he couldn't continue. So we'll just have to wait and see on that one. Ange has doubled down on the fact for him in regards to when asked about the team and their performance and display overall. We're asking a lot of this group of players. A lot of these guys are playing every 3 days. It's only logical they are not going to be at the sharpest, but they are trying and they are doing all that I can ask of them. It's obviously massively disappointing at the defeat in terms of the nature of the tight game. It was never going to be the kind of game where there'll be many chances. I still thought we had a fair chunk of it and where we could have got something out of the game, but it was always going to be a tight one. It was disappointing at the nature of the goal we conceded. But aside from that, the boys worked so hard and we tried to generate as many opportunities as we could, considering the context of the game and how Forest play, but we just couldn't get over the top of them. Look, we'll bring you in more from Ange as we do get it. And look, Pat, I know for you, look, let's be very, very clear about it. From the very start of Ange's reign, you made it very, very clear on this show, you will give him an opportunity. But I know you was massively, massively concerned about his European record when you take out what he's done domestically. I think that's fair, Pat. I'm not putting words in your mouth there to start with, Pat. Am I saying that?
Yeah, I was concerned with his credentials. The leagues he had managed in, when he had managed games against the better teams, tactically, he always came a cropper. I watched him, Celtic versus Real Madrid and other games. I had all the stats and, reeled it all off at the time. And it was concerning for me that even against the better teams, he just didn't seem to take any defensive responsibility, and it was all gung-ho, attack, what you're seeing now. And it's just naivety at the highest level. And I was called a snob. I was told that I'm being ageist. Some people said because of, just loads of stupid shit. And basically all I was alluding to is that as a manager, I just didn't think he was good enough. And obviously, time will tell. He came in, I wanted him to do well, still wanting to do well. I want to back the guy, but just come on, just look at what's going on right now. Look at the stats. And
let me read you out those stats, Pat, and you can come back on them here.
Yeah.
The Spurs, of course, as many know, that, it's our 8th Premier League defeat of the season. We didn't lose 8, as I mentioned in our intro, until April of last season. We are 3 wins out of the last 11. We've lost 13 of our last 24 Premier League games now. And a bigger margin to that, we've lost 21 out of the last 43. If you take that over a points perspective, Tottenham have taken just 29 points from a possible 75 available. When you add to that, we've had 3 points from a possible 21 against the likes of Leicester, Brighton, Palace, Ipswich, Fulham, Bournemouth, and now Forest. And when you look at the fact at the moment, we've got the same amount of losses as Ipswich, 3 wins in 15, bottom half of the table for the first time in 16 years as Spurs are at present. And we've lost more games at this moment in time than Palace, Everton, and West Ham. Only Wolves and Southampton have lost more Premier League matches than Spurs this season. Pat, I think many will ask the question, for those that want to change a manager, who do you want? And to add to that as well, given the decimation of the injuries that he's had around him, what is to be expected now? And where are we going into a very crucial run of games for Tottenham? In that, of course, a big Carabao Cup semi-final for the club, a couple of really crucial European games. And he's been very much clear about the fact the injuries are what's killing us at the moment. How much do you agree to that point? Or is it a case for you, the overall systematics and the form that we're showing is a bigger concern for you?
Ricky, I think the injuries is a cop-out. And of course, every team gets injuries, and every manager has to contend with that. But I think it's a massive cop-out because even before the injuries, our form wasn't much better. Even when we had, Mickey van der Ven and Romero and Vicario in goal, it was still the same helter-skelter, one ball over the top, defenders on the halfway line running back, transitional, the other team 4 against 2, they pick us off and they score a goal. So even with our best players, we were still conceding goals and chances in the same manner. So of course, yes, the personnel is a bit better, but it was still the same. It was still the same principles. It's hard to defend a manager who doesn't want to defend. I'll say that again. It's hard to defend a manager who negates all defensive responsibilities. And I just think it's madness. And, for all the people, when I was reeling off all these stats and basically alluding to, I didn't believe in Ange Postecoglou that he was good enough. They said he's a smart man. He's going to adapt. He's going to figure things out. I don't see that. I'm not going to lie to you. I don't see any adaptation. I don't see any movement in the flexibility. The system is suicidal, to say the least. It's crazy that we keep playing this way. We're losing game after game after game, and he's still doing the same thing. It's insanity to keep doing the same thing and expect different results. We're playing against teams and managers that, if we're being honest, aren't better than what we're going against. But when you look at it on paper, I went into this game expecting a loss today because Forest on paper are a better team than us right now. And when I say on paper, I mean the league, what they've done, the amount of times they've won, how many games they've lost, and what they're doing. And it's crazy when you look at the team. The team is, and of course, yes, the quality should be better. And again, that goes down to Ange and the players we brought in the summer. We talk about injuries. You play a high intense, high octane game of football. You've got people sprinting all the time. The way we play is very demanding. You knew we were in Europe this year. We weren't last year, but yet you only bring in the caliber of players we brought in the summer. So I can't really agree with the whole injury thing because we knew what was going to happen before the season kicked off. And yet here we are. All the fans scream for better quality. All the fans scream for a bigger squad. And now we're down to bare bones, and then you blame it on that. But we knew this was going to be the case. So I don't really understand how you can blame it on that when these guys are meant to be the best of the best, and professionals are meant to know all of this. And we could see it from a mile off, and they couldn't. It's crazy. And this is where we are. And I don't know. Like, in terms of, I don't see the point in sacking him. I never wanted him in the first place, as you guys know. But what's the point of sacking him mid-season? We have to see it out now. This is his squad. It's crazy because like January's coming, and just to finish this point off, people will say you can't give this guy more money because it's suicidal because of what's going on. But what else can we do right now? You can't bring in a good manager right now who's available realistically. And if the new manager comes in, they're going to say, this player's not mine, that player's not mine. I need to change this, I need to change that, I need time. And we're back on the, or basically at square one. So realistically, see it out. But also, is it negligent to give this guy more money when we've already lost 9 games? Played 18, won 7, lost 9. We've lost 4 out of the 5 games. And as you said with all the other stats, it's scary when you actually look at the form that we're in. I don't really know that's a solution, but you would expect a manager of his level, if he is of the level that everyone told me he was, to change things up and make sure we're a bit more tighter defensively. Like Marlon said, and like I was saying on tweets and this and that, to concede 6 in the game at home is criminal. And it's criminal that fans clapped him off the pitch like we had done something fantastic in that game. Oh, we scored 3 against Liverpool. No one else has scored 3. They were 5-1 up with 30 minutes to go. What do you expect?
Pat, can I ask you? So it's a really important question I ask you back to your point there, Pat. You've made it very clear in terms of where we are for you on Ange. And the question is that many will, again, asking, you've made it very clear for you at the moment, you see no benefit in sacking him in terms of an uplift. So just to come back on this question to ask before I bring Mitch in here, you don't think Ryan Mason, if it's obviously how you're feeling about Ange, would get any more of an uplift of these players for you at the moment?
If we had a chairman that was ruthless and backed the manager, then I would have said sack him ages ago, because whoever the chairman brings in, he would back him and back him properly. But I know how Levy works. So even if he does sack Ange, the next manager, is he going to get 100, 250 million to bring in the players that he wants? No. So I don't see the point. So that's why I'm where I'm at. It's not because of Ange. Ange should have been sacked a long time ago, if we're being honest. But it's just the fact that the manager the chairman won't back him properly. So we're kind of in this cycle of nothingness. Is Ryan Mason better than Ange Postecoglou? Probably not. So I don't really know where we go from here.
Yeah, I will just say it's a very, very tough conversation to have, where I will bring in the fact, and maybe you might not like me saying this. Ange Postecoglou for some might be an issue, but there are other issues around Mitch, which you've discussed on length actually on your YouTube channel as well here. You know, we talk about the fact of the manager, but again, it is about the fact of being left very much short of a squad in obviously the summer. I think every Tottenham fan acknowledged the fact that when we looked at the window in the summer, that Tottenham had not done anywhere near enough in realistic terms to be able to fight on all four fronts. And here we are. I mean, look, league alone, we are really, really struggling despite progressing to the Carabao Cup semi-final. We've got, of course, that big double-header to come against Liverpool. We've got, of course, obviously away in the FA Cup, where a game in the FA Cup where, with all due respect, when I say this, Tamworth, Spurs should win that game. But, you know, people that are genuine Spurs fans know what Tottenham are like. You can never, ever assume anything. And when you look at the fact we've got 2 huge European games to come, the form is quite worrying now. And I think, Mitch, it's really important that we make this point that, you know, many are going to point to, and I'm going to bring it up in a second, the current away form. I think Ange Postecoglou, in my opinion, has been really hamstrung by not having a squad that is benefited to the style and the sustainability of the way he wants to play because of what he's been given. Now, you could argue and say, well, look, he's come out publicly and said, I've been happy with the squad, which, can I be honest with you, the last 4 or 5 managers have had to do because they know if they don't say they're happy with the squad, they're not going to be in a job, right? That's the reality. But what we can't get away from, Mitch, is when you look at Spurs' away form, and in terms of that away form in general now, when you look at it in general, Spurs have played 28, they've won 10, they've drawn 7, they've lost 11 in terms of away from home. On the road, just to be clear, Spurs have had wins against Bournemouth, relegated Burnley, relegated Luton, Palace, Forest, Villa of 10 men, Sheffield United, relegated from last season, Man United, of course, in there as well, Man City, the 2 Manchester clubs of Spurs. They did put some really good away performances in. You can't get away from that. And you now add to that, of course, you can't really add to that. I mean, that is pretty much, I say, that those are the wins Spurs have had. Bournemouth, relegated Burnley, relegated Luton, relegated Sheffield United, Palace, Forest of last season, can I just add, not of this season, of course, Villa of 10 men. Then you've got the 2 Manchester clubs in there. And the concern will be as well, Mitch, to add on to that, Spurs have gone behind at some point in 16 of their last 28 away Premier League games. And they've only won one of those games, the 5-2 win at Burnley over a year ago. I think, you know, many do look at the nature of the form in general as a concern, but the away form in particular, Mitch, is a massive, massive problem. Only 5 away games won on the road in a calendar year. The question I want to ask you is it systemic in terms of Ange Postecoglou? Is there a bigger picture here with regards to not having the squad available to him, both in terms of injury and players not being bought for him to be able to play the way he wants to play?
Yeah, look, before I say what I need to say, I do want to point out that those that are staunchly Ange out and want to get rid of the manager and stuff, like I do completely understand why people have that viewpoint, why people are fed up, why people are annoyed. But I cannot yet bring myself to accept another cycle of everything that we've been through over the last 5 years. And I know, Pat, you said about talking about injuries and using it as an excuse is a bit of a cop-out. I don't necessarily agree with that because I do think we've conceded, I think, triple the amount of goals in the last sort of 4 or 5 games with that Dragusin, Archie Gray, Spence, that the defence that we've put together over that than we did in the games before that with Romero, Van de Ven, Vicario, all fit and playing. So for me, obviously, I know you've mentioned about the away form, Ricky, and that being the main point. The away form has been a problem for a long, long time. I think it's something that we've struggled as notoriously for longer than Ange. And before he came in, I think that's just a problem at Tottenham for some reason. So, yeah, it's a really, really difficult one because that graphic that you pulled up, and I know not everyone will be able to see it, especially if you're listening on the podcast the day after or later on, to show the signings that we brought in the summer. One of those signings was sort of like a senior first team starter type player that Richard brought it up kindly for me there. Archie Gray, Lucas Bergvall, Timo Werner, Dominic Solanke, Wilson Odobert, and Min-hyuk Yang as well, who's joining at the start of next month. I mean, like, whether you're Ange in or whether you're Ange out, that's not good enough recruitment. And as you mentioned, obviously Ange coming out and saying he's happy with the squad, of course, like PR and talking to the media, it's all planned out before. Like managers don't always just go into press conferences and speak their immediate thoughts and what's off the top of their head. So I don't want it to sound like I'm making excuses for him, because I do think that there is a lot not right with how he sets us up and with how he goes about his business. And the ultimate point from me is, I think if he doesn't bite the bullet and change some aspects of his system and his game, he will get sacked, regardless as to whether we recruit in January, regardless as to whether we go on a good run of form. If he doesn't, and we keep going through the same pattern and the cycle of winning, losing, or whatever it may be, then, you know, he will lose his job. So that for me is the ultimate point. Away games have been an incredibly tough watch this season, like incredibly tough watch.
Barring the Manchester stuff.
Yeah, tell me about it. That's what I mean. Old Trafford and the Etihad, the two exceptions to that, of course. So, you know, it's mental, because I'm reading through the comments as they go, and, you know, I'm seeing happy clappers, the word fraud, all of that sort of stuff. People are getting really angry about it, and I do understand why they're so frustrated. But I can't sit through another period of Ryan Mason in charge of the club on an interim basis. I can't do it. No one is going to come into the club mid-season that we want or we think is good enough. You know, I've seen people throwing names about who I don't think up to scratch to what we need, and it's so difficult to find a balanced argument to the points that I want to put across without one annoying people, which obviously isn't like, I don't care, you know, what my opinions are. You're
going to say your truth. You're going to say your truth.
Yeah, exactly. And my truth is, I would stick with Ange, and I would stick with him through till the end of the season. I 100% would give him the January transfer window to recruit. And he said it in his interviews. He needs to bring in more experienced bodies, and I want to see who he brings in. I think we have gone about talking about this rebuild for so many years now. And it all started back with Poch, when he was talking about furniture and the fact you need to clean it out and do all of that. We're finally going Hail Mary with that, in terms of changing the squad and trying to rebuild something and build something new. And yes, there's a bar. And if you go below that bar, you're still going to get sacked if the performances are that bad and we are at serious risk of being in the relegation places and dropping down to that level. Of course, there's always going to be that bar if you're in charge of Tottenham, because that's the expectation of the board and Daniel Levy and of the fan base. But the ultimate thing is, we are in the semi-finals of the Carabao Cup. We are likely going to go through in the Europa League. We have a favourable first fixture in the FA Cup. I said at the start of this season, I'd take finishing in the bottom half of the table if it meant we won a trophy. And I know the counter argument to that will be, you know, playing the way we are, we're not going to win a trophy. But, you know, we don't know, and that's why I think wait, see what we're like when the injuries come back, and he does bring a few more players in the January transfer window. And if we've won nothing and we finish low in the bottom half and whatever else in between, then I can't defend it, because, as I said, there's ultimately a low bar. But I don't see an alternative. I don't see a manager I want to bring into the club, and I still think that Ange is better than having Ryan Mason steer us until the end of the season, because, you know, what's the point? We just go through the same cycle, mate, and I'm sick and tired of it. And people are impatient and frustrated, which is fine. But yeah, it's just my opinion at the end of the day. But I'm still sticking with it for now, to be honest, mate.
Can I ask you one thing, Mitch, before I fly over to Miles? I think it's really important I ask you this question as well. You made the point there, Mitch. If he's not going to change his tactics, he will be sacked. But when he's been so fundamentally doubling down on this point, week upon week, presser upon presser, that he will not change, I'm just really intrigued to know it, because I find it fascinating. Is there anything that gives you any sense of indication that he may have to slot? Do you know, it's quite fascinating. I mean, I've made this point. I've never once asked him to ever completely adopt or change his complete stance of football. Never once have I ever said that. What I have said is that I think there needs to be an element of a little bit of bend, a little bit of pragmatism when you have not got your available squad to you. And teams, with all due respect, are coming to play Tottenham and they almost know the rulebook of how to do it. You know, I've gone back to this, Crackers said it on the show, Gary O'Neill went on Ford Monday Night Football and gave a whole PowerPoint presentation on how to beat Spurs. 3 months later, he went and done it again. So the league now, in terms of the managers, are very, very wise in terms of how to play against Spurs and how to work us out. And I think that, for me, is one of the biggest concerns of how easy we are to play against. So this is why, again, I find it fascinating that you've said it there, Mitch, and you're someone that's been very much pro Ange Postecoglou, that he is going to have to change. Just bring Miles in there. Is there anything that shows you or tells you from what you've seen from Ange he will change, Mitch, on that point?
Like I said to you a second ago, I think he has to, because if he doesn't, then he gets sacked. Look, I think the bottom line is this. I think if we lose the next 2 games, he'll get sacked. 2 home games against Wolves and Newcastle. I think if we lose both of those, he will lose his job. Neither of those are going to be easy games. Newcastle particularly are not going to be an easy game. Wolves, they might have some sort of new manager bounce going on. If he doesn't adapt, he will lose his job. We are playing in one of, if not the toughest leagues in the world. It is the Premier League. If you want to be successful in the Premier League, I'm a fan of Ange, and I've made that very clear. But if you're not going to adapt, you're not going to be at that top level. My opinion is Ange isn't a world-class manager. He's not a world-class manager. He hasn't shown me that he is. And I do still want to stick with him because I want to see this rebuild actually go through to the end and see what we look like it rather than tear it up and start again, because I haven't seen one in so many years. But the big issue for me, Ricky, is the midfield and the lack of a number 6. And I know he's come out before and said that he doesn't want necessarily a traditional number 6 and to play that way. But I think we're so desperate for one. We're so desperate for a bit of protection in front of that back line. And that for me is what the priority has to be in January, is to go out and get that profile of player, because we're far too open in midfield. And as I mentioned with that Forest goal today, it's so evident. Whether we play Bergvall there, whether we play Basuma there, Sarr, Bentancur, whoever plays there, there's no protection for that defence.
Mitch, thank you so much. I appreciate I say these are not easy conversations to have when, Mitch, you've only been with Arsenal Spurs the last 3 or 4 years, and I think we've changed the manager the last 3-4 times. So unfortunately, you've been used to this conversation round and round and round again. And that's why many, Mitch, I will just say on this point, will be understanding with you about the fact that does changing the manager ultimately solve everything? But I think the reality is, as we go week upon week, and if we continue to lose game upon game, there's very alternative left in terms of that choice. But I will make that point again and double down on this. That I think he has been very much hamstrung in terms of the transfer window. I think he's been really lucky in terms of the injuries. I know there's a narrative, Miles, coming to you around the injuries that's been the source of the way that he does train the players to real game intensity. But I will just say this point. I do feel sorry for the guy. He's clearly hurting. I think anyone that can't see the guy is hurting. Come on. You can see in the press conferences, he's deeply upset. He wants to do his best for Tottenham. He's a man that cares. But at the end of the day, we are fans of the football club. Our allegiance is with the football club and nobody else. That is the reality of where we are. Miles, I'm just going to bring in, if you don't mind, his full comments to that presser. It was a very short presser. You can imagine probably it would be after a game like that. He said, look, it's disappointing, the defeat, tight game. It was never going to be easy. And the reality is that I still think we had a fair chunk of it where we could have got something from it. He was asked about having control for most of it and not making a dominance count. He said, look, we're asking a group of players here that are playing every 3 days to continue to be at their sharpest, and that's all I can ask them to keep giving their all. He finally finished actually on his presser, and this is how short the press conference was in relation to, as you mentioned, Radu Dragusin, where, again, he emphasised the fact he's a bit sore, he hurt his ankle, and we'll have to wait and see what the ultimate assessment will be on that. So he definitely is a doubt for Wolves. We know Jed Spence is definitely out. Of course, he's been suspended. Miles, look, I've read you a lot of the stats and facts about where we are under him. The last 17 Premier League away games, we've won 4, we've drawn 3, we've lost 11. It's 15 points out of a possible 51. Again, I'll reiterate that point. He's only, had 5 away wins on the road in a calendar year. The starting 11, just to be clear, I think it's really important we bring this into the fact. When you look at Spurs' starting 11, and many ask, what is the starting 11 nowadays when fit? Cost around in the region 265 million. That's excluding Heung-Min Son. and you add to that the bench, which is understood to be in the region, if you go on the transfer mark, of around 125 million, of which 100 million was used during this one, that totals 380 million. So, I mean, the question is, you know, when we talk about the system, for many, they describe the word as suicidal. In footballing terms, I must just add, do you think, Miles, giving more money to Ange Postecoglou is the answer here and giving him better players that actually fit the system to improve results? Or are your concerns deeper than that and it's actually around the manager's credentials?
Look, what really bugs me is, let's go back to last year. We had injuries then and he didn't adjust. We went into this season knowing the fact is that we went back, knowing the fact he had injuries last year to Romero and Van der Ven at some point, and Maddison at some point last year, and we didn't then functionally get players in for him for this season, considering we had more games this season, considering we had a bigger squad last year, and then he's got the injuries again. Well, I'm expecting him to learn something from the last time he had injuries, and he hasn't, and that's the worrying thing about this. And you cannot blame today's game on injuries at all. We've conceded 1 goal, and the injuries you are talking about are Vicario, Van der Ven, and Romero. The rest of the team, I would be playing without with or without those injuries. So we could not sit there. We haven't even scored today. We haven't created nothing. We haven't done anything going forward. So it's all good saying, injuries is not a problem. Injuries is an issue. But when it comes to games like today, you have to look at it and go, well, they're not an issue. Actually, it's your tactics that are an issue now. And let's go back to that goal, because that goal's really important. And actually, Mitch raises a great point. Bentancur actually had a decision to make when Spence lost that ball, and he makes the wrong decision. He should come across, right? And Dragic and Gray, because Gray's literally, if he doesn't come forward, which he doesn't, they should go as a 2, and then Bentancur should come in and stop that. That's what Rodri does for Manchester City. Hence the reason why Manchester City are struggling now, because they don't have someone who's that intelligent in the middle as a number 6, right? Arsenal have it right now with Rice. So if he doesn't sign a number 6 in January, well, then it's going to be pointless us even doing anything, signing other players in other positions, because he's going to have exactly the same problem. And this is the problem with Ange right now, is that he's got these players and he's not tweaking it to he's leaving Gray exposed. Gray is not centre back. What are you doing? Right? You can put Gray in there, but Gray is not going to be the answer to the number 6 that everyone is thinking, because you can see he's good on the ball, but when it comes to thinking about that defensive situation, we've seen it with him at right back, left back, and centre back. He's not very clever in that sense, and he just gets caught out in certain, because in that position, okay, Bentancur's gone to the right. If Gray's thinking defensively, he should step out, but he doesn't. He's not thinking like that. So at the end of the day, we've got so many major issues that they are becoming tactical, and they're not becoming because of injuries, because he's putting the team out there, they're suffering, and then he's not changing it. And even today, like with Maddison, like I will go back to the Maddison thing. Maddison should have started. I just don't get why he's not starting at the moment. There is an issue there. And we are not going to find out, like I said on the last show, until one of them is gone, what's happened. There's just too much going on. There's too many problems. And do I trust him in January to go and spend that money wisely? I don't trust him, Lange, or anybody to go to go and spend that money wisely. What are we doing here? Now, Pat said something earlier, and I was like, you know what? But if you don't sack him now, are you not going to have the same problem next summer if you sack him then? You're still going to have the next manager is going to come in and want a rebuild. Yes, it's a longer window, but maybe if you give a manager the next 6 months, in Pat's situation, if he wants him out now, if you give the manager the next 6 months, at least he knows which players out the squad now that will need to go in the summer, and then give him next season till he's had his 6 months.
Is there anyone, Miles, just to qualify you on that point? Is there anybody out there that you think is going to really, with all due respect, take this job mid-season?
Honestly, I don't care. This is what the club is there to do. They are there to go out and get the best. If we've built a stadium and a training ground like we've been told, then they have to go out and go and produce the best. There are managers that maybe, look, Xavi might be one. I'm not saying he will come in and do the business, because if we get to the end of the season, we're going to have the exact same problem. Spurs are not going to go out and get the best manager. Like everyone's talking about the Areolas of this world, and
yeah, I mean, I think
because
again,
if Bournemouth are in Europe, why is he coming to Spurs? Why is he coming to Spurs? Marco Silva's another one that people have been talking about. If Fulham do well this season in Europe, why is he coming to Spurs next summer? Because there is a lot of, at the end of the day, the board have created this thing with Tottenham Hotspur right now where the job is not attractive. No matter how big we want to think we are, the job is not attractive because unfortunately for Ange, and this is where I do feel sorry for him, he's come into a club where there were problems to begin with.
Totally agree.
And they've not been fixed. And we're seeing those problems on the pitch still, no matter how we want to put it. Yes, the tactics are a problem, but there are bigger issues that are just always going to be the problem. So is Ange the answer? Probably not. I've always said this. Ange is not the answer for the Tottenham board. What we need to go and do is go and find somebody that can work with the way the board want to work. And once we get those two things together and marry them up, we'll see a lot of problems just suddenly just be put to the side. But right now, Ange just wants to play a system where he needs really good players and consistent players.
I totally agree with you on that. I totally agree that there's a certain clientele that is the way that Ange Postecoglou wants to play. And I think Spurs are, Marlon, you put it so right there. Spurs are at this crossroads now where Spurs have to either go into the January window and actually buy him the significant clientele to be able to go and do that. Or they're going to have to ride this out, in my opinion, till the end of the season and then look to make a decision. That is
and
how
and they're going to have the exact same problem if they ride it out to the end of the season, because it doesn't matter if he's in or out. If we get a new manager, it's back to square one. It's not, and that's the biggest issue that we're going to have here. We are back to square one. So it's all good, everyone saying, have him to the end of the season. However, if you're going to give him to the end of the season, you might as well give him the season after to see if it's going to work out in the whole transfer window, which I don't expect it will, because I just don't expect this club to go and get Ange the players he wants or the ones that he requires.
Yeah. I think the reality is you look at the last time Spurs had a manager that could work under the current ownership, which, again, the reason why we're saying that is, and I think Pat will understand this, I'll come back to Pat in a second, that the ownership at the moment, they're not going to go anywhere, right? Nope. Unfortunately, that is the case. So Spurs are in a situation where they're going to have to find, if it's not, I'm just saying, for those out there that maybe don't think Ange Postecoglou is the right man, they'll have to find somebody that is able, as you said, Marlon, so eloquently, that can actually work with the current foundation, with the board, to be able to get the most out of the current group. And I will just say this, that there are, contrary to what many people think out there, yes, the squad has been left in a position where it could be better. There's no doubt about that. We know it's better. But the question you have to ask yourself is whether the squad you've got at the moment is an equivalent of 11th place in the league. And when you look at the stats and the facts around the away form, the form in general of the football club, should we be operating better? And you add into it as well, which has been a decimation of injuries. I think no one can get away from the fact that I know Patty said it's a bit of a cop-out. I will just say on this point, I will just swing around to Mitch and agree on that point. I think, yes, the injuries have not helped him. They have hindered him. But what I will say, Pat, to qualify on your point, is that is where you need to show some adaptation, some pragmatism, and tweak where necessary to be able to deal with the squad you've got. And I just don't think we have seen that enough. What we are going to do, look, we're going to quickly fit in Ange Postecoglou's interview that he's just given. And when we come back, we'll be looking ahead to how big that Wolves game is in the course of our seasons. I want to just say again, look, a very Merry Christmas to all you wonderful viewers and listeners that have taken your time out of your Boxing Day schedule to come and join us here on Last One on Spurs. Over 5,000 of you have. I'm not sure if whether you're crazy or insane or you just love us, but look, we love you very, very much. Like I said, we're going to bring in Ange's comments in just a second, but a reminder, if you don't mind, look, you guys know the drill by now. We are delighted to be sponsored by NordVPN. Nord are, of course, our long-time global partners here on Last One on Spurs. They've been with us for the last 4 or 5 years. They support the show in many variety of ways. You can go right now and get yourself a discount. You're going to need it for those that are traveling away from home on away days, for those that want to catch your latest shows by going to nordvpn.com/LWOS. Right. We're going to hear from Ange Postecoglou, and we're going to be back after this very, very short moment in time. Thank you so much again for all your support. We'll be back with you after this interview from Ange Postecoglou.
Ange, commiserations. What were your thoughts on the game today?
Yeah, tight game, obviously. Not much in it. obviously the way Forest play, it's never going to be an open game. And yeah, we had some good chances to kind of get a goal, and we needed to sort of gain momentum in the game, but unfortunately we couldn't get it. And they scored from their counter attack, and unfortunately we weren't able to claw it back.
I think, as you say, they're always going to defend deeply, and they were so tight today as well as a unit. Was it an ultimate disappointment to concede so relatively early on in the game to only see them get even tighter after that?
Yeah, it wasn't. You kind of know when the game's in the balance. You don't want them to sort of gain the ascendancy. I thought we were in control up until that point. When they scored, I thought we had the better chances, and disappointing goal. But we had good chances after that as well to kind of get back in the game. We couldn't take them.
Save the odd Forest counter after that. You've had the whole game. What was missing in the final third?
Oh, just a combination of things. Like I said, there's not a lot of space. The keepers pulled off a couple of good saves. Kind of lacked that opportunity to get a clear-cut sort of view on goal, and couldn't get through.
Do you think you could have asked any more of the players who are out there today, given the way the game played out?
No, they're giving everything at the moment. And like I said, it's not an easy place to come to. And I said there wasn't much between the two teams, so we just weren't able to get over the top.
You lost another couple of defenders there today in Jed for the red card, and Dragusin, who looked like he came off with an injury. Is that a serious one?
Not sure. He obviously needed to come off, so we'll just wait and see.
And just with the numbers you've got at the moment, do you think you're going to have to cope with that for now, or do you think in January it might be an opportunity to expand the squad?
Oh, we'll see. We'll work on that. But we've got a game Sunday that is in our focus now, and then we'll have a look at that after.
So there you go. That was Ange Postecoglou there, straight after that defeat, of course, Nottingham Forest in the Premier League. You'll be glad to know, for watchers and listeners out there, as we approach the hour mark, that very minimal game incidents from that one. And to be fair, I think so eloquently the guys already talked you through the nature of that goal. But I will just give you a reminder in terms of the team for this one before we do turn our eyes to Wolves, if we can mentally stomach it. Look, Spurs, they made 3 changes to that fixture against Forest and actually finding a couple of fresh faces to bring into the lineup. Rodrigo Bentancur being recalled and left-back Destiny Udogie. The Spurs boss decided to give Jed Spence his 4th consecutive start and place again in the side. And for Spurs, Bentancur, of course, back from that 7-game suspension. Yves Bissouma stepped down to the bench. Brennan Johnson made his return against his old club after last season's return to, of course, Nottingham. James Maddison was given a rest on the bench amid the busy run of fixtures that we've got. So Spurs lined up with a team of Forster, Spence, Dragusin, Gray, Udogie, Saab, Bentancur, Kulusevski, Johnson, Solanke, Son, with a bench of Austin, Reguilon, Porro, Bissouma, Maddison, Bergvall, Olasise, Werner, Lancashire. Look, minimal chances, you'd say, early on in terms of that game. Chance for Sonny, he broke through the middle after Kulusevski intercepted a pass. The skipper then hit a shot, which centrally went straight at the goalkeeper. Johnson then forced a save after Bentancur found him with a pass. One thing I do want to bring up very, very quickly, Pat, and it's really important I do bring this up. There is a lot of conversation around Heung-Min Son's contribution at the moment as the captain of this football club. Now, look, I think with Sonny, we've always rightly given him the praise when he's required that praise, 100%. I think as a player, there's no doubt about it. Sonny, on his day, is still, in my opinion, one of the league's most unplayable players. But in his current form, Pat, when Sonny isn't offering you anything from an attacking perspective, he doesn't really give you much defensively. And there is a lot of frustration around right now, the captain, who, look, I think we're lacking leaders, right? We're lacking real, genuine players that can step up to the mark. And I think Decky's done that for most of the season. Decky had a quiet game. And it's really hard to nitpick when, I think as Mitch suggested, there's a lot of players off form in that game for you. But as a captain, Sonny is, how concerning is his form for you at the moment, Pat? And is it the system that's letting him down? Is it the multitude of injuries that are letting him down? What do you make of Heung-Min Son for you at the moment?
You know, I'll go back to that question in a moment because it is a good question. But I wanted to touch on the Ange interview that you played. And is it me or does the guy just look shot? He looks devoid of ideas. He looks finished. And like, you're our manager. Like, I mean, you're the guy that's meant to come in and give us the tactics. You're meant to give us the bounce. You're meant to give these players an idea. He just looks like he doesn't have a clue of what's going on. He looks out of his depth, and I don't want to crash on the guy. You know, I don't want to kick him when he's down, but come on, Ange, man, sort it out. Like, shape up, like, get some oomph and some life in you and figure things out. Drop the fullbacks a bit. pack the midfield for a bit. When we go 1-0, 2-0 up, you know, sit back for, you know, like change things up, do something different. We're so easy to play against. And the guy says the same thing. It's copy and paste after every loss. It's the same thing he's saying and doing. Change it up a bit. Like, come on, man. It's crazy. Listening to that, I almost fell asleep. Like,
I think the thing
where...
is, though, Pat, that is, as you've just said there, to not put words in your mouth, that has been his consistent, I would say, general nature
Crazy.
after every game. And I think the problem is that
so boring. It's so
it is
boring.
boring. But I think what I would say on this point is that, you know, I think this is just my opinion, and take it for what it's worth, Pat. It might not be worth much. I think he is clearly hurting. I think there's bigger things that are going on behind the scenes that he really lets on. I think there's no doubt about it. I think he's been massively frustrated. I still think by the summer transfer window, right? It's just my opinion. I think, you know, if you're asking a manager to get the most out of what he's got, I think he's going to need more players. But I can't take away, Pat, what you're saying there in terms of an
Ricky,
interview.
why doesn't he be a man? Like, you know, obviously, I know we live in a PC world, so be a man, be a human, you know, I know there's female managers and female football fans as well, but why doesn't he be a man and say that? Put some pressure on Levy and the board. We're coming into the January transfer window. If you were left short, if you're pissed off, if you're upset, then come out and say it. Why not? I mean, he's got the whole fan base on his side. No one really wants to see him get sacked. They want to see something more from him. But at the moment, he's given us nothing. Like, that interview there was abysmal. Like, we've just lost 4 out of the last 5. It's Boxing Day. We were so flat during that game. Yeah, we had control of the ball and yeah, blah, blah, blah. But there was nothing there. And it just looks like he didn't want to be there. Like, come on, man, show me something. Change things up. Do something. So it's like, I just don't get what's going on right now. Like, this is a guy that come in and, you know, it was a fresh face, fresh ideas, fresh philosophy, all of that stuff. And, you know, you got Jamie Carragher and people saying, you know, rightfully so, no one has tried to do this in the Premier League before because it doesn't work. And is he arrogant enough to understand that or do, like, show them, but tweak it a little bit. I really want the guy to succeed. I really do. But I just don't get what's going on right now. It's like we're sleepwalking to a loss after a loss after a loss. Like, where's the desire to get better? I don't see that, Vicky. I don't see that right now.
I don't see that, Pat, in any of his post-match interviews, I've got to be honest with you. I don't see a man in that moment that is going to give us the answers to the questions. If I'm going to be honest with you, I think after a defeat, he just looks so downbeat and downhearted where he looks like a lot how we feel. That's the only thing I can say, that after a defeat, he looks a lot how we feel. Pat, what I will just do, because of time's pressed against us, I'm going to come back round to you on Sonny in a second. I'm just going to ask Mitch that question, if you don't mind. Mitch, just to go back to the question I was going to ask you.
Yeah, of course.
Sonny.
Go ahead.
Mitch, I think, you know, again, I made that point about Sonny, that, look, he's the captain of the football club. He's meant to be one of the leaders out there. And, you know, similar to when we asked the likes of Maddison, Kulusevski to be stepping up. Romero, of course, is out injured. You need your best players available on the pitch to be giving you absolutely everything when they are out there. It does feel a lot with this team that we see is that when the likes of Maddison plays well, when the likes of Sonny plays well, Tottenham play well, right? That seems to be a narrative around Spurs in general, that when the players are playing well, we get the results. But when we're not doing so well, we don't seem to have the players within the squad to be able to reverse a game and to change it. I need to ask you about Sonny. There's a lot of conversation around Sonny right now. Is that unfair, Mitch, those conversations around Sonny? Should that just be levelled at other players as well in the team for you?
Yes, but Sonny is one of our most senior players. He's one of our most experienced. He is our captain, our leader, and I feel slightly sorry for him because he is being overused, in my opinion. Like the bloke. I don't think the bloke can play multiple games a week, and he particularly can't play 90 minutes in multiple games a week. I just don't think he does. I look at him, and I looked at him again today, and I just thought he looked tired. It was a complete shadow today. And I want to keep this strictly about his performances because I love the bloke and what he's done, you know, how he represents the club and how much he loves Tottenham Hotspur Football Club. But this season, I don't think he's been good enough, and I don't think he's been the guy to step up and pull us out of the dirt and out of the dark times when we need someone to do that. We saw it so many times. When you think of the legends of the club that we've had over the years and those that have been able to pull out that moment for us when things aren't going our way, we saw it so many times with Gareth Bale when he was at the club. Harry Kane did it a lot for us as well. Just that moment, that one moment, even when that player isn't at their best or at their fittest or the team isn't on a great run of form, Son hasn't been able to do that for us today. And I got frustrated with him against Forest today because in the second half particularly, I don't think he touched the ball. And that's not what you want from your captain and arguably your most talented player in the squad, with the ball at his feet when you're down in a game, when you're en route to losing 4 of your last 5 games, when, you know, with Wolves beating Manchester United now, I think would be something like 8 points off the relegation zone. It's just, it's not what I want to see from him. And I think it's partly to do with management. And I think it's partly to do with, I don't think he's confident in himself at the moment. Whether that's going to change, I don't know. Of course, though, it's not only on him. And I don't want to hound him out too much because there's a lot of other players that aren't up to scratch. Maddison is hit and miss. Yes, I think he's very important to our team. He's hit and miss. And when Kulusevski is not up to it, and when he has an off game like he did today, because I actually think he was really poor today, when he's not on his top form, there's no one else in that team that is going to step up and say, right, well, I'll contribute for you then, or I'll be the guy to take control of this game. So it's issues all over the pitch, right? Like, we all know that it's issues all over the pitch. However, when you look at the teams in the league, most of those teams have a player that will step up. Cunha's just scored for Wolves. He's that player for them. Cole Palmer, I know Chelsea lost today, but Cole Palmer's that player for Chelsea. Bowen is that player for West Ham. Most teams have that player, and we've not seen it enough at all this season. And regardless as to what your thoughts are on Ange and the tactics and the recruitment and the board and Levy, that is missing, and we need to find that if we are going to improve.
Yeah, I totally agree. And look, we'll cover that goal off. But to be fair, I've got to say this, that eloquently, Pat, Marlon, I mean, you guys have covered that goal off and the nature of the way Spurs conceded. Look, Forest did take the lead eventually. That was before Johnson had a shot that, again, was saved by the goalkeeper. Elanga put through, gets beyond a doggy to poke home past Fraser Forster. And I think, Mitch, you actually said this on X and qualified this point during the show that, you know, Morgan Gibbs-White just got the ball on the edge of the box and he's allowed to run uncontested to the edge of it. You know, our midfield simply evaporated. You know, why is Johnson the only central body on the turnover? Of course, you'd argue he's going to commit. That's actually not a dig at Johnson, but the nature of the way Spurs concede goals, you know, a doggy at the end of that move is looking ahead to the linesman, looking for a flag to save him. That flag never came. It simply never came. And again, that goal that was conceded there, it's been systematic of a lot of the goals that we have conceded under Ange Postecoglou this season with the way we do adopt at times a high line, not all the time. That led to the Forest fans singing, but again, it's quite bizarre. I don't know if they've ever got an issue with Ange at all. They started singing, "You're getting sacked in the morning and you're just an F Aussie bastard." I'll let you repeat that line. And I'll let you put that word in the middle, what you think that might be with F, but not kind at all. Look, it's football banter, right? Many would argue, but is it appropriate? I'm not sure about that. After that, there was a terrific link up between Kulusevski and Johnson. It ended with Sells making a good shot. Sonny, free kick into the side netting. Second half, really, this was the nominal of chances. A double save from Fraser Forster. Eventually, Bergvall, Maddison replaced Bentancur and Sarr. Maddison fired a shot over on the turn outside the box. Later on, you had Porro and Werner on to replace a doggy and Son. Radu Dragusin, as we mentioned, went down injured. Again, Ange Postecoglou not able to share much on that at the moment. He'll maybe be touch and go for Wolves. We'll have to wait and see. And then a second yellow card and a red for Jed Spence. That does mean Spence will be out of Wolves to come against Wolves at the weekend. Before I ask you guys for Wolves at the weekend and what that does look like, Miles, I think a question I do want to ask you is that the rhetoric out of Ange and a lot of the recent press conferences that the players that are playing are giving absolutely everything. But yet we are here. I don't think you could question I don't think you could question the application, effort, and desire against Liverpool. I just think that was a better team that we played. But to qualify Pat's point, I think we should be conceding 6 at home. But is Ange giving an allowance to the players, do you think, to keep them on side here? Because in that game there, I've got to be honest with you, I think there is a few more gears that we could have gone to. That's just my opinion. I know we've got injuries. I know there's fatigue amongst the players. I know it's Forest that are on good form. They're 11 points clear of us. But that's a really critical question I need to ask you before we look for a close here, is Ange giving more of an allowance to these players? Given only a few weeks ago, he dug out Werner out of the blue, really. I know it was a bad game he had, but in that game, again, he could have dug out many players. I mean, is he showing preferential treatment where maybe he could be harder on the group but doesn't want to for the fear of his job at the moment?
Yeah, look, I think he can feel. Look, he can feel that the fan base is getting a bit tetchy with him. So the last thing he needs is the players to be gone as well. So he has to handle them differently. Look, he probably. Look, I bet there was some backlash to him and that team when he dug out Werner. And there would have been whisperers, murmurs going on in the background of how the players really, really felt about it. So he's probably looking at it now as, and actually, I've got to rely on these players in the next couple of weeks. And I'm not expecting him to throw them underneath the bus. Are they good enough? Probably not. But at the end of the day, they're the ones who have got to play his system. He's the one putting them out there and making them suffer. So at the end of the day, if he starts throwing them underneath the bus, they're just going to stop playing for you anyway. And at the moment, you can see tactically, some of them are just not really getting it. And that goal, as you said, for how much space there was, you can blatantly see that there clearly is something missing in that dressing room. So look, at the end of the day, to put this into perspective, he will not throw a player under the bus for the next few weeks while this fan base is where we're at. And he clearly knows that a lot of us, and you can clearly see it in the chat, it's getting to that moment where a lot of them we don't want him here. And if he starts throwing the players underneath the bus, that's game over for him, because you just can't have the players against you as well, plus the fan base.
Guys, let's end it on Wolves. Look, I feel like I ask this question almost every show now. How big is the next game? How important is that in terms of Andy's future, January transfer win and everything? I will just say again, because of the nature of our recording and the fact we do want to have some form of Boxing Day here, and for you lovely, amazing people out there as well, you've got to have some form of Boxing Day, right? Wolves are, at the moment, we must just say they are leading Manchester United. I'll just say it for the moment. I mean, I could go in depth for the scoreline, but football's a crazy sport where things can change. Pat, you will be there. I'm sure you will be at the Tottenham Hotspur Stadium for that game against Wolves, who are flying now, quite simply under the words of Anthony Costa. That manager bounce, 2 wins in a row, it looks like it's going to be for them. How do you feel about Wolves on the horizon, Pat? And the fact that Wolves were one of the teams last season that did beat Ange Postecoglou at home and have players that I think are very good at counter-attacking Tottenham in a way in which, let's be honest about it, a lot of teams have had success against us. Is that a concern for you, that Wolves game, or can you see any light at the end of the tunnel where we can try and reverse this form that we're in at the moment? Which, again, I will just say, I think I've said a couple of times during this show, my apologies, I think I've said it's our 8th Premier League defeat. It's not. It's our 9th. That's not to make you feel worse. That's just to make it very, very clear where we are. 9th Premier League defeat of the season this was against, of course, Forest. Pat, how do we stop it being a 10th?
I mean, I'm not confident right now. Like, every game's a concern and a worry because we're just so weak, like, defensively, and the form is so up and down. I mean, like you said, we played 18, we've won 7, lost 9. So that speaks for itself. We've got more losses right now than wins, and that's scary. And we don't really draw games. We've only got 2 draws, so we either win or lose. And at the moment, we're losing more than we win. So home or away, I mean, we've lost to Ipswich at home, so that tells its own story. So realistically, and to be fair, it's the Premier League. You need to respect every team, every opposition, and Wolves have got some good players. So I don't know. I don't know. Something needs to change. Ange needs to start getting more out of his players. I mean, you've only got the personnel available to you. You need to get the most out of them and play to a system that suits the players that are available. That means sometimes maybe changing things a bit. I just think at the moment what he's doing is just, it's suicidal, and it's obviously not working out, is it? Clearly. So something needs to change. Obviously, on our day going forward, we can, of course, blow teams out of the water. But right now, confidence is shot. The manager looks shot. The fans obviously quite, like Marlon said, they're tweaking at the moment. We're very, it's a lot. It's a lot that's going on. So, yeah, fingers crossed. Obviously, you want to be optimistic, and I always hope that we can win our next game. But at the moment, Ange needs to show us all something, and give the fans something to get behind. It's a bit shaky at the moment.
Pat, there's a lot of people saying you need to be cheered up. It's difficult. It's difficult. Can I just say, Pat's been with us the last. Pat's not in a settled period here on last one on Spurs. I mean, I think for Pat's general, nature, I think he's quite joyous. He's even got his Christmas hat on for our listeners on audio. I mean, I think he's been quite calm.
Man. Yeah, I'm all right. Like, I mean, like, I
Character
think
building, Pat.
it was
Character
good.
building, isn't it?
Marlon and Mitch said it. Like, you just got to look at the table. Going into this game, I didn't think we were going to win. Unfortunately, I was right. I'm not going crazy because I didn't expect us to win today. Wolves is a different story. I don't know. But yeah, I'm fine. I'm honestly fine. It is what it is. I think the domestic season's been written off now. It is what it is, man. What can you do? But yeah.
Pat, I want to say, mate, a massive thank you for giving up part of your Boxing Day with us. You know how much I love you as a friend, and I know this is a difficult time for anybody that is connected with Tottenham right now. And we have to hope there's better times ahead. Otherwise, it will send us barming insane. But I want to say, mate, you've always been consistent. It's what you've always said on this show. I think, when you're going through times like this, you're seeing people's raw emotions of having to come on here when you are genuine fans and having to try and summarise and give opinions, suggestions, solutions, where, let's be honest about it, I said this to the guys in the green room, we don't unfortunately have the solution. We can only give you how we feel and hope things are going to change. So, Pat, I love you. I want to say a massive thank you again to you, mate. I want to wish you a very, very Merry Christmas and a healthy, happy New Year. You're going to be back with us very, very soon, Pat, I'm afraid to say. So, yeah, we love you, my man. Thank you so much. Mitch, I'm going to hop around to you. Mate, thank you so much for coming back on. I think, look, we always try and pride ourselves on trying to find a balance to these shows, which I've got to be honest, as a host for me, I'm going to say that it's really hard to do that right now. I always want to be able to see the good and the bad when it comes to players, managers, board, anything around the football club. But there's no doubt about it. Results, and when you're coming on here straight afterwards, can definitely affect your judgment. I will always just try and say, we'll always try, in my opinion, to produce a show that has got the balance required. But we can't get away from stats, facts, and where we are right now. So that is reality. Mitch, I want to say a massive, massive thank you. And what do you feel about for Wolves at the weekend?
Yeah, I mean, first of all, I just want to say, like, ultimately, every single one of us wants the same thing at the end of the day. We all want Tottenham to win. We all want Tottenham to succeed. I do feel like the fan base is quite divided at the moment, but the end goal is the same, in which is we want to see us lift silverware. We want to see us doing well in the league. We want a decent atmosphere at the stadium. We want all of that. I just think all of us, or a lot of us, have different ideas as to how to get about that and how to get there, and that's absolutely fine. And for the majority, I love having conversations with people that disagree with me. I love hearing what people have to say when they have different viewpoints and opinions to me. And for the majority, I enjoy chatting to everyone about that. So yeah, like I said earlier, Wolves is huge. Wolves is huge. I want Ange to stay. I want to keep hold of him. But if he loses to Wolves on Sunday, his position is getting more and more sort of untenable for each game that we lose. And we know how bad it is when you lose at home. I think if you're conceding 6 goals at home and then you're going, if you're advancing a week and then you're losing again at home to a team in the relegation zone, then it's very, very difficult to defend him. And I think people picked up on it in the comments in the show today. It's very difficult to put forward a strong argument, positives outweighing the negatives at the moment for Ange staying. I'm not entirely sure. But I'm sticking with what I said at the start of the season, and that is to see it through and see through this sort of rebuild, although people don't really want to label it that anymore. So yeah, Wolves will be tough. Wolves will be tough. New manager bounce, good players. Maybe Cunha will finally get his ban before Sunday. Who knows? So yeah, he scored in both games since that incident against Ipswich. So yeah, let's see what happens. But as always, Ricky, mate, thank you so much for having me on. And yeah, it's been great to detox as usual, even if it is getting more and more difficult. So yeah, let's see.
Well, Mitch, can I just say, you run a fabulous YouTube channel. Please go and check Mitch's YouTube channel out. Like I say, all that information will be in our description. And Mitch, I say thank you so much. And I think, again, I will double down on what you said earlier, Mitch. We all do want the same thing. We all want Tottenham to be successful. And I will say this very, very clearly. Everybody has got different pathways, different shortcuts, different avenues of getting there. That just doesn't mean that we don't want to come to be successful. Everybody has got their own viewpoint on how we do that. That's what makes this club so special. That's what makes fans so special. We've all got different opinions on that. Very quickly, I didn't get your prediction. Let's go to Pat first, then we'll go to Mitch. Pat, prediction for Wolves?
Oh man, let's go crazy. 3-1 Spurs. Why not? 3-1 Spurs.
You really have had a bit of whiskey, haven't you, Pat? I love you. Mitch, what are you going for?
4-0 Tottenham.
God, where are we going to the show? Shows how nuts we are as a fan base.
Still drunk from Christmas.
Are you sure, Mitch, about a clean sheet? Have you guys just swigged the whiskey before I put the graphics back up or something there? My God, what a nutty place this is. Miles, let's close with you. Will we find some semblance of reason here? Firstly, let's close it on this. Miles, for you, Wolves, pivotal game. They're all pivotal now, as we say. How big is Wolves in your opinion? You're back with us on Sunday, so sorry.
Yeah.
I have to apologise in advance.
Look, I'm going to say this with a straight face. Look, Ben Davies is apparently back, so we're winning this game. If Ben Davies is back in the team, you know, that's why they've heard. We've got Dragoshin might be out. You've got no Jed Spence. Poro's going to be back in, and Ben Davies is apparently fit. We're winning this game. Don't worry. Don't worry about Wolves winning now. They're only beating Manchester United. It is Manchester United, right? Let's get going. Let's bring some positivity back. In all seriousness, look, he can't lose. Because at the end of the day, if you can see the last word on Spurs people, a lot of people are out in the comments. That stadium is the one thing he's got on his side at the moment. So let's go with that. But no, I don't think we will lose. I think we'll get a result. I think we'll all be happy on Sunday. And I'm going to end with that. I don't want to sit there and say we're going to lose, because I don't think we will. And look, Wolves are only beating Manchester United. Let's get that in perspective. It's Manchester United. We are slightly better than them at the moment. So good luck to him. He's got some stuff to sort out. And look, I sit on the fence with Ange at the moment. 1 minute I want him in, 1 minute I want him out, 1 minute I'm in, out. That's the way it just goes game by game. And right now, I'm still in. I'm still there. I'm still there with him. However, he's got to really turn it around in next. Look, he's got Newcastle and Wolves coming up. They are very, very hard games now. Yeah. And it's kind of, let's see where we go from there. But look, as Mitch said, we all do want the same end result. It's just that we're all thinking it in different ways of how we're going to get there. But we will get there. Whether it's like one, how we get there is another question. But we will be here to pick everyone up if we don't get there this time next week.
I don't know how I've been doing this the last 7-8 years. I said to Pat, it's character building, but I think even mentally, me, who's such a positive person, I think it tests us all, right? Miles, thank you so much. I know it's been a real shift that you've put in. So, Miles, did we get a prediction there out of all that, or did you just try and call me and not give me a prediction?
If Ben Davies is back, 2-1 Spurs. If Ben Davies ain't playing, we're losing.
You're trying to give me a political answer, trying to avoid the result. Miles, I want to say a massive thank you, guys. Massive thank you. Over 6 hours I've watched the show live. I'll say again and double down that point. We all do want the same thing, but there's nothing wrong in having different ways to get there. I want to say to you all right now, go and spend some time with family, friends, whatever you enjoy doing away from Tottenham, go and do that right now. Like I say, we are here on Boxing Day straight after the game. I'd implore you, look, times are challenging right now at the football club, right? So I will make this point that this is a time now, really, we all need to stick together because this is never easy. And I will just say that we are a lot more stronger when we're always together. But I do appreciate that at the moment, a lot of people want different things. And I just feel like at the moment, we just need to all be as one, which is hard right now because I know not everybody's going to be feeling that. So listen, a massive thank you again to this wonderful panel. Please go and enjoy the rest of this festive period. We'll be back with you after Wolves, the wonderful Marlon over at Spurs Kings. Please go and check the Spurs Kings out. Please go and check also these guys, Marlon Ash, featured on YouBet on ITV. They were absolutely brilliant. Please go and check Marlon Ash out on ITV. If you want something to get away from family, go and watch, or with family, go and watch that for an hour. They were brilliant. The wonderful Mitch Fretton, please go and see him. Check him out for more content on YouTube. Check Chatty Patty out as well. Patty is in and around the footballing community, even though I think he might need a break himself. It's the nature of football, right? Listen, guys, thank you so much for all your incredible support. We love you very, very much. Please keep safe, keep the faith, and as always, come on, you Spurs.